So I picked up this little record, Irwin Vise, little woodworking vise, for a workbench for my son. Now, it opens 6.5 inches. By the time you put jaws on it, and of course you don't have to put jaws on it, and you certainly don't have to put cherry, 3/4 inch cherry on there, it does take up a fair bit of that 6.5 inches. I don't know how thin you could go. It is a giant. I just picked up this 6.5 inch Irwin woodworking vise for the little workbench I made for my son. It was relatively inexpensive, and it does seem to work fine. I will say that a 6.5 inch opening gets quite small by the time you put the pads on the vise. I suppose you wouldn't have to use those, but if you're going to use them for woodworking, it really needs a wood pad. And you wouldn't have to use cherry flooring like I did. It's what I had around. Although I don't know how thin you could go and still get purchase with your screws. So you're not going to get much thinner. So that does cut it down. So instead of it being a 6 inch vise, you should probably think of it as like a 4 3/4 or a 5 inch vise. That said, it seems to be reasonably stout. You know, for a 5-year-old, he can handle opening and closing it all right. It's certainly functional, and you couldn't beat the price. It was made in China. The vise has one central screw and 2 guide rods. And if a person was pretty crafty, you could probably replace the screw with a longer one. It's just a square jack thread. And certainly you could replace it with longer guide rods. It attaches the jaws through 2 bolts right here. And then you have to drill holes through here if you're going to attach the vise itself and attach the jaws. Or you can possibly, if your vise sticks proud, you could possibly get it from the backside. But my guess is not. So I had to drill these 2 holes, and that's, you know, that's pretty standard. It mounts straight through into here, and then there are 2 more that go straight up. What I don't like is that the screws going in line up directly with the screws going up. So you have to put these in at one angle and the bottom ones at another angle. Otherwise, they just run into each other underneath there. Well, that's not that big a deal. This just has a roll pin. I can't imagine that's going to survive particularly long. But on the other hand, there's not a lot of pressure going when you're opening it. And let's face it, you can always hammer in a new roll pin. Pretty straightforward. The guide rods don't wobble, and it doesn't fight too hard going back together. The action is pretty smooth, although it cranks a little rough. But then it's brand new, and I imagine it'll get better with time. These jaws here are 9 inches, and I have an incredibly straight clamp across here. But the groove at the top is wider than the one at the bottom, meaning the jaw faces are tipped out ever so slightly. I don't think that'll ever make a difference. I do think that in some respects you would have to, understand you get what you pay for, and you didn't pay very much for it. So in that sense, it's a kind of a nice, reasonable value. Certainly, I'm not going to be complaining about that. I might complain a little that they went ahead and shipped the vise in a large box loose with a digital camera and smashed the heck out of that, but I can tell you that the vise came through without a mark on it. So, for what it's worth, Amazon did a little durability testing for me. All in all, I like it. You know, he just turned 5, so he's as infatuated as squishing things with it as anything else, I imagine it'll be some time before he really settles down and does anything. So the Irwin record 6.5 inch vise as shipped from Amazon. It's a pretty good deal. Just, no, it has no automatic unlatching. You have to crank it in, crank it out, and understand that 6.5 inches is an awful lot smaller than you think, and even smaller once you put the jaws on. But all in all, I like it.